Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release, The Substance. Yes, I finally have seen The Substance, and I see what everyone's been talking about. Some people are saying this is potentially the best horror film of 2024, and at this point when I'm doing this review, I'm gonna agree right now. But I still have a few more to watch before the end of the year, so we'll see. But anyway, written and directed by Coralie Fargeat or Fargeat. Sorry, pronunciation. This individual did the film Revenge that was on Shudder. I think that was actually a Shudder original, and it may still be on Shudder. I did enjoy that one. There was some kind of like far-fetched stuff in it that didn't seem all that realistic, but from like an entertainment standpoint, a very entertaining film. So not that surprised to see that The Substance was at least a good film, but it is a very good film. Wasn't ready for that. This stars Demi Moore, who is excellent in this film. Now, okay, we've all known that Demi Moore is a great actor. We all knew this, but it's been a while since I've seen Demi Moore in anything, and seeing her in this just reaffirmed to me, oh yeah, that's right. Demi Moore is great, outstanding, just an unbelievable performance in this one, and I really, really hope that she had a good time with it. I really do, because it seemed like she could have had a good time with this role. I actually watched this through Fandango at home. I did a rental for $6.35. That's with tax, so pretty cheap for this film. Quick synopsis. It is about a woman played by Demi Moore who is going through that issue that a lot of people in the public eye go through that are female, where she is being considered old. You know, she's being kind of like phased out because she's not as young as she used to be. So, I mean, she's still very attractive, but she does this kind of like workout video series, and the executives there are just like, well, you know what, it's time to get younger and hotter, and that's just what we do. When women get to a certain age in this business, we just throw them away and we get the next one, and then we ride them all the way and then throw them away, rinse and repeat, you know? So that's what is coming for her. So she ends up getting mysteriously approached, basically, for the use of something called the substance. And she ends up using the substance, and it's a way to kind of get a much younger version of herself who can then go on and take this job that she's going to be losing. So she's keeping the job, and she's younger. And yeah, so I don't want to go any further than that. It is obviously a horror film because I'm reviewing it, and it gets very horror, very horror. This is a film that I would imagine David Cronenberg would watch and say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Very body horror. Gloriously body horror, I will say. That's why I'm making the comparison with David Cronenberg, because it is up there. Anyway, they do a really good job of summing up what's at play in the film in the first few minutes, without dialogue, really. They do such a great job of kind of establishing where we are with this person's story, what we need to know, and also they tell you pretty much straight up, these are the themes. This is what this film's going to be about. It ends up being a little bit more after that, but they do a great job of just kind of throwing everything at you in the beginning, so you know exactly what to expect, and then after that, it's kind of just the ride of how ridiculous is it going to be, how wild are we going to get, how amazing are these practical effects going to be. Pretty amazing. So yeah. There are a lot of up-close shots to make things look intentionally gross, because these things then stand in opposition to other things in the film that are beautiful. So this film does a whole lot of this kind of like public eye, beautiful kind of fake face fronting appearance, and then focuses on not just like gross things as far as like practical effects and body horror, but just like other gross things, like focusing really closely on someone's mouth when they're chewing food in a very disgusting manner, like things like that. And who they're choosing to do that with is very important, and I'm not going to go too far into that, but you'll see what I mean, or you'll know what I mean if you've seen the film. So I love that kind of like dichotomy of like things are so beautiful. Plus the film is very beautifully shot. So like everything looks gorgeous with the way it's presented, but then you have these just disgusting, horrific things. So it's just a really, like I'm saying, really cool dichotomy of like beautiful but also disgusting at the exact same time. And I love that. I love that about this film. The acting is a bit overstated, but you can tell that it was an intentional choice to make the film have this kind of air of absurdity. It goes hard, it goes very over the top, it's very wild, and that's why I think the filmmaker felt like we need to lean into this instead of playing it straight and trying to present the horror in that way. We're going to make it ridiculous. We're going to make it a little bit absurdist. We're going to make it fun. Because that's the thing. When you hit that kind of like absurdist level with a film like this, it goes from being like intense or scary and being more like light and fun. And that's kind of what this film ends up doing. Now, that said, I think there's a lot of stuff in the film that's still going to really gross people out and be a lot for some people to handle from a visual standpoint, especially going to these practical effects and the body horror aspect of it, which is why I was saying, Cronenberg would be proud. But I did ultimately like the choice of the kind of overstated acting. At first I was like, I don't know how this choice is going to go, but I think it fit great for what they were doing. It looks great, like I was saying, outstanding shots and camera movements, but also the set design and the colors that they used. There are a bunch of scenes that I actually think looked a lot like Stanley Kubrick's shots in The Shining. Now, it's not just from the standpoint of like how they set the shot up, like how they framed it and the perspective of it, but also like the color of the set design at that point. And it really did seem like they were heavily trying to give people that idea that we are intentionally trying to be Kubrick-esque right here. We are trying to invoke The Shining in these shots from a visual standpoint. So I appreciate that because, The Shining is my favorite film of all time. It's unbelievable. But this film, so well shot. It's so visually pleasing. Things get real weird and nasty pretty early on in the film. That's another thing. I really appreciate that about this film, that they didn't wait too long to get the gross stuff out there to let you know this is what this film is, and it's going to get even more gross as things go on. It is such a wild ride, and that's one of the greatest things about this film is you think it's going to be a wild ride, but you just don't know how much of a wild ride it's going to be. So if you're looking for a lot, that's this one. This is a film that could make people pretty squeamish. Like I was saying, there are some things that are very gross and can be very hard for some people to end up watching. For me, it's more like I see those things on screen and I just get more excited. I'm like, oh, amazing practical effects. Oh, something that they're trying to really gross people out with. Like that stuff appeals to me in so many ways. There are very long stints with no dialogue, and I'm all for that. I'm a big fan of having stints with no dialogue and just having the way it's shot and the score and the expressions of actors tell the story. I am all about the show don't tell if it's possible in film, which is kind of like that rule for writing books and stories, show don't tell. So I kind of feel that way about film a lot of the time. And you do have a lot of filmmakers who will just, with dialogue, over-explain things to their audience like they're stupid. This film doesn't do that, which, part of the reason is they just don't need to because it's such like a simplistic story. But I appreciate the fact that they just have all these portions of the film where they're just like, yeah, you don't even need to hear from these characters. You don't even need to get any dialogue. We don't need to explain things to you. Just watch it happen. And really watch it because it's gorgeous. It looks amazing. It looks disgusting and amazing all at the same time. Practical effects are great. Like I already said, love the practical effects in this. A lot of the design of it, phenomenal. The pacing is pretty good, although I do think they could have and should have shaved a little bit off this film. I think with credits, it's 2 hours and 21-minute runtime. That's just too much for what this film is, in my opinion. Not by a lot, honestly. So I am kind of surprised. Do I think they could have cut it down to a straight up 2 hours? Maybe. But that's why I'm saying just cut a little bit off. They could have and should have cut a little bit off. But For it being as long as it is, I think the pacing is actually pretty good, which is very surprising to me. When I saw that it was over 2 hours, I was like, oh no, is this going to be another one of these bloated films that we've been getting? And I don't really think so. It felt great. Uh, they clearly play off an old film at the end. I'm not going to say what, but you'll probably understand what I'm talking about. It's based off something visual with a character at the end, and then they match some very specific dialogue up with that, and you're just like, oh, they're referencing this very old film, which I thought was funny. It kind of leaned even more into the whole like we're having fun here, we're actually kind of joking around in a way. So I like that. And the ending is fun and very wild. I love where they decided to take it in the end. I didn't know if this was going to be one of those movies where it's like, it's awesome, it's wild, it's having a fun time, and then it just falls flat at the end. No, not at all. It has a great kind of going for it all finish, in my opinion, and it feels very satisfying. The last thing I want to say about this is the film doesn't just deal with societal pressures to look good, but also the feeling that as you age, society values you less and less. But it's also just this time old thing that gets used in films, specifically horror films, of we're all going to pass at some point, and when we do, like, did our life matter? Like, what's going to be remembered of us? Like, are we going to be forgotten? And that fits a lot into the whole aging thing of like your body starting to fail you and people seeing you as not really an important part of society anymore. You don't have value because you're not young, you know, stuff like that, which is very real stuff, unfortunately. But out of 5 stars, half stars, and play, I'm going to give this a very good 4.5-star rating. This is an excellent film. Everyone should definitely see it. People have been, body horror people have been waiting for something like this for a long time, and I think this is going to be one that pleases those individuals for sure, plus a bunch of others. But would love to talk about this film. Go ahead and put it in the comments. We can do spoilers in the comments. That's totally fine. Do me a favor, though, hit subscribe to my channel. That helps me out a lot, shows me your support. If you want to monetarily support, you can also do that. Membership linked in the description so you can see for what nominal fee per month you would end up getting, which is some fun perks for the channel. Thumbs up on the video would be helpful with that YouTube algorithm, and you can hit the notification bell button because then you'll know when I'm putting up new videos. But regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this, and until next time, keep it brutal.